Welcome to Palace to the Court. My name is Stephen Dawes, and today I'm going to be talking about the game between Crystal Palace and Tottenham Hotspur. And I'm also going to be addressing the comments that Roy Hodgson made after the game. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later on, so don't forget to stick around to the end of the video. And of course, if you want to keep up to date with all the Crystal Palace bits and pieces going on, then don't forget to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. So, this was a game which I thought it was going to be a really hard game. I thought that we would improve after the Newcastle game because we weren't very good at Newcastle, and I thought that the Roy Hodgson would have us jimmied up and would have us looking a lot better against Tottenham Hotspur. And to be fair, I mean, I wasn't entirely sure we were getting anything out of the game because I thought that Tottenham Hotspur are flying at the moment, and even though they've played what you could call the smaller teams so far this season, I thought that I thought they have been playing well. They're very well organised. So when the game started, I was hopeful that we'll be able to give give them something to look at, give them a game, shall we say. And I think for the first half we did do that. We were playing quite well. We were absorbing pressure from them. Obviously they had the lion's share of possession because that's the way it is at the moment. I thought that we were trying to get the ball off them. We were trying to counter attack when we could, and we were trying to do our best to create chances. And certainly in the first half, I thought we created a couple of decent chances, a couple of half chances here and there. There was a spell towards the end of the first half when we had a little flurry of corners. So I thought in general terms, I thought we did actually do quite well in the first half. We kept them at bay. I don't think that Sam Johnson had a huge amount to do in the first half. So I was actually really pleased when we went in at the break. And, I mean, the lineup, I'm not really going to talk about the lineup because it's going to be the same. It's the same as it was before, and so it's not really going to change that much. So there's not really any point in me talking about the lineup because you probably could reel it off the top of your head by now. But anyway, that was happening in the first half. We were playing really well, and I felt that we were trying to create chances. I mean, I don't think it's easy at the moment with what the players that we've got, but we were trying to do that. And I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why I think we didn't do that a little bit later on. Second half, I thought we came out and it kind of started off the same way. They were trying to force the issue, and we were just trying to hold them back and hit them on the break and things like that. And then we had a very unfortunate own goal from Joel Ward. The ball came fizzing in, and basically he was facing his goal, and when the ball came to him, he stuck his foot out and he went in. I'm not really going to be overly critical of him in that situation because I think that it's one of those things. A lot of defenders have done it in the past, and it's not going to be the last time a ball like that trips up a defender. So I'm not entirely sure that was entirely his fault, really. I'm not entirely happy with his whole performance. I felt that he's getting slower, and although he's using his experience well to try and adjust for that, and and make things easier for himself and not having to do so many runs, he is getting slower. And when you're up against players who are getting faster, it's starting to show a little bit now, unfortunately. But that's the way it is. I mean, we don't really have a huge amount of other players available. I mean, we've got Nathaniel Klein, who's may well be a little bit better, but he's still someone who really shouldn't be playing for Palace at this stage. We should have new left and right back. Well, certainly only right back anyway. But so that was a bit of a shame. And then we kind of continued really after that to try and get something out of the game. I know that Roy did bring on Raksaki, and I thought that he had a decent game. I mean, he didn't really do anything majorly, amazing, shall we say. He tried his best. I think he did what he could with the time he was allowed to have. And you had Tottenham Hotspur, who were bringing on quite a few replacements, quite a few substitutions to try and get the game settled and to try and bring fresh legs on and things like this. So it was a bit tough after that. After that goal went in, we were looking a little bit crestfallen, a little bit like that. And then, of course, towards the end of the half, Roy brought on França, who didn't really have time to do anything. I mean, he made a couple of mistakes, but in general terms, I don't think he had enough time to do anything major, really. I think he was brought on purely just to try and mix things up a little bit. and I'll get to the comment that Roy made after that. But so then the second goal went in, which was really a bit of a counter attack in itself. You know, we were pressing high, they were all came over the top, and they came in on goal and scored, and it was a bit of a counter attack from their point of view. So disappointing, obviously, that we conceded that second goal, because I thought at 1-0 there's always opportunity you're going to be able to pull one back, and we did pull one back late on in the second half, thanks to a great volley by Jordan Ayew, who is getting a little bit of stick for the game, but I actually think he's one of the better players we've got in terms of attacking options. I mean, yeah, he doesn't score a hatful of goals, but you know, he tries, and he's one of those players who will always work really hard going forward and going back. And he's one of the few players we've got at the moment who can hold the ball up when you give it to him. So I think that for that reason alone, I think he's being a very good player for us at the moment. So it was a good goal from him to make it 2-1, and that's unfortunately where it ended up, even though again we had a bit of a flurry towards the end of the second half. It was a little bit futile, unfortunately. Going on to the comments that Roy Hodgson made, and I'm going to put a brief little section of the comment up on the screen so that you can see what he said. It's just a snippet of the post-match interview, so you know that in itself might seem a little bit odd, but a little bit later on I think he tries to clarify it a little bit more. But in essence, he said, I'm paraphrasing here, he said that he felt that the players that he brought on, the subs that he brought on in the second half, made the team weaker, and they didn't really contribute anything positive to the game or to the team. Which, you know, a lot of people have jumped on and said that it's a bit unfair, because obviously Raksaki was actually wanting to play in the Championship this season, and Roy persuaded him to stay. And also França, he's only played a handful of minutes in the Premier League. He's only just come back from injury, and a lot of people were a bit surprised and a little bit upset by Roy's comments. Later on in the interview, he goes on to say that he thinks that it's a little bit unfair how people have seen França as the next big thing, you know, and that he's played a handful of games before he came to Crystal Palace, and that he's on this learning curve, the same as all the other young players are at Crystal Palace. And he says that Raksaki is a little bit ahead of most of the others because he's got games under his belt, but they have to learn discipline, and they have to learn what is expected of them during the game. And I think he went on to talk about attacking and defending options, and I think this is the reason why some players don't get into the team. And a lot of people say, why isn't he playing this person, why isn't he playing that person? And I think it's because he wants all of his players, whether it's the striker or the defender, everyone, to be involved in at least some form of defensive role. He wants every player to be a defensive role as well as an attacking role. So he wants everyone to, you know, defend when the opposition got the ball, and then when we've got the ball, he wants people to be able to run and to create a counter attack and things like this. So there are certain players who I think he doesn't trust with the defensive side of things, and I think Raksaki and França at the moment, I think maybe he's thinking they're not giving enough in terms of the defensive thing, because he was talking about things like, you know, playing, you know, you've got to earn the right to have time on the ball, and I think that maybe he's thinking that those two in particular in this Tottenham game didn't really produce enough defensively or work hard enough to be, you know, given the opportunity to earn time on the ball. So I think he's getting a little bit frustrated, I think, by the whole situation. You can see it in the press interview. He looked frustrated. He looked a little bit you know, a little bit on the end of his tether. So I think that and it's understandable, you know, I think when he took the job this season, I think he was asked to come back because they hadn't found anyone else to take his place. And a lot of people say, why did he come back? Well, I think it's because he was asked, and there wasn't anyone else that they could have got for whatever reason. And I think he was probably promised that Zaha would stay. He was probably promised that a few players would be brought in. From the way he was talking in the interview, I don't think he actually I don't think he either didn't know or didn't want França. I think that, you know, you look at it and he says, oh, he's come in, he's a young player, he's only played a handful of games in Brazil, and he's come into the Premier League. So I think he's not entirely sure what he was expecting from França, and I think he has said that he was pleased with him in training. But of course, that's then got to transfer onto the pitch, and he's a young player. So I think people need to understand the fact that he's a young player, Rak-Saki's a young player, and yes, they're going to get time, but you can't just throw them in and play them for the whole game, because otherwise that's going to be a bigger dent to their confidence as anything that Roy Hodgson's going to say, because he's going to be like, you're going to be playing on them and they're going to maybe make mistakes and stuff like that. Anyway, going on from that, there were a couple of things which I think was a bit disappointing during the Tottenham game. For one thing, and again, this is because of the players that we have available. You've got Edouard. They play the ball over the top of Edouard for him to run onto. He's not fast enough for that. He was being outpaced by the defenders every single time he tried that. That's the problem. When you got Elise and Eze, and when we had Zaha, they're faster players, so they could deal with the ball over the top to get run onto. Edouard can't really do that. So when they were trying to play the ball over the top to him, he was just getting outpaced by the defenders. And so that's one of the reasons why we weren't. That wasn't an effective scenario for us. We weren't able to do that. Edouard likes to get the ball to his feet. He likes to have the ball played into him, so then he can do something. And he had a couple of decent chances, but they were in the box and they were balls that came to him. So I don't think he's the kind of player that you can play the ball over the top to and expect them to run onto that. And we did make a couple of mistakes in the game, a couple of wayward passes here and there. And I think that really Roy Hodgson's a bit fed up with the whole situation. I think that he wants a stronger squad. I think he wants players who have got the quality about them. He said that he's looking forward to when Eze and Elise come back, to give them a bit more quality into the team. And I think he's right. And I think that the problem is they've been hit with this injury situation. And also Mitchell went down with an injury in the second half and had to be replaced. And Roy said that he doesn't know anything about that at the moment. And he said because he gets pulled around here and there, having to justify or talk about the reason why they lost the game and stuff like that. His whole demeanour during that interview was a little bit off. He seemed a little bit short-tempered, and I think that it's been a little bit of a theme for the last couple of games or so, or certainly later on this part of the season. He seemed a bit more short-tempered and a bit more sort of talking about things that ordinarily you wouldn't necessarily have been talking about. Now, whether this is because he feels let down by the club because of the players and the money that wasn't available, whether he feels let down because of the injury situation, I don't know. But I think that there is something going on. I don't think he's quite himself at the moment, which is a shame. But again, it's understandable. If you were in this situation, maybe he was promised things that have not been delivered. Steve Parish spoke to Sky Sports I think it was after or before the game, I can't remember now, and he said that he's hoping for the new stand to be started next year. That's hoping the stand will be started for next year. He thinks it's going to be completed around 2027. That's a long time, and it's just been delayed and delayed and delayed. So the longer it's delayed, the less chance there is of us getting serious amounts of money coming in from revenue and stuff like that. So it could be the whole thing, the whole situation there is maybe dragging him down a little bit. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this game. Let me know what you think about Roy Hodgson's comments if you saw them. Let me know what you think about the game in general. Let me know what you think about França and Jez Rak-Saki in the game itself. And of course, anything else that you want to talk about involving Crystal Palace, let me know down in the comment section as always.